Hi, how you doing today? My name is John Freudenberg with JDF Marketing. I'm the distributor for Oceanpower for North America, based here in Fort Worth, Texas. Today we're going to put together a short video about how to properly clean and sanitize a machine and get it ready to put into service. First, I want to kind of give you a little bit of background about Oceanpower. We have a number of different models here on display. The smallest one that we have is the 118, which is a single head countertop. It's 115 volts. It does about 5 to 6 gallons an hour production, so it's very high volume for a 120 volt machine. Probably very close to the highest volume in the industry on a 120 volt. Next we have our 138, which is one of our core machines. It's a twin twist floor model, runs on 220 volt single phase. It only takes a 20 amp circuit, and it's still a very high output machine, very simple to work with. Low number of parts, so the cleaning of it is very quick. Just a good workhorse, does a nice job, and it's very reasonably priced. Then today we're going to show you how to clean and sanitize with our new machine, which is the 865. This is a touchscreen machine. This is our premium line. It has a few more options than the 138. It has dual compressors, it has dual drive motors, it has dual mix hopper refrigeration. Very nice machine. It has a solid core control system, which was made by Siemens. Very well known control company in the industry, in all industries, and the basic PLC is very solid. You know, it's not new technology. It's something that we chose to use, something that was proven, and that's why it works so well, and it has a lot of capabilities. Okay, so one of the first things I want to point out is the side drip tray. You may have seen the article about McDonald's where one of the operators pulled out a drip tray, and it was pretty disgusting. This needs to be pulled out and checked every single night. This is there for a reason. If your rear seals on the beaters do not do the job and seal correctly, you'll get drippage into this tray. If you don't ever pull it out, you never know. If this runs over, guess what? It goes on top of motors and everything else inside the machine and creates a lot of problems. So it needs to be pulled out and washed every single night. It slides into the side, and it's just there to check to make sure that the rear seals are not leaking badly. And if you get 1 or 2 drops in there in the course of a day, that's fine. If your tray runs over during the course of the day, then you have a problem. You need to replace the ripple seal first. If the ripple seals don't, the ripple seals are this little guy. If the ripple seals don't stop the problem, then probably you need to replace the rear stopples. But you need to pay attention to this, because otherwise the product's going to run over inside the machine and create a big mess. So what we're going to do first, we're going to start with the beaters. We have a new design on the beaters that incorporate both a ripple seal as the main seal and then 2 small O-rings, which are secondary seals, to help make a good positive seal through the back of the machine. So I'm going to put the O-rings on. We're going to put a little lubricant on them, and then we're going to put a little lubricant on the shaft itself. The ripple seal basically acts like an accordion. It squeezes between the back of the machine and the beater. So what I do is I put a little bit of lubricant just on the edge before we insert. and then we're going to put a little bit right here just to assure that this can spin on the piece that's in the back of the machine, which is called the rear stopple. So we're going to slide that in, turn it until it lines, and that's basically all there is to that. From there, we're going to assemble the faceplate. The faceplate has the most parts of anything. One thing that I want to point out is behind the faceplate, we have the fewest number of parts pretty much in the industry. On a comparable Stolting, there's 26 parts behind the faceplate. On a comparable Taylor, there's 18. We have 2 beaters, 2 ripple seals, and 4 O-rings. We used to not have the O-rings, but the O-rings are a very good idea. We put them on there for the pressurized machines to make sure that there was no leakage, because of the extra pressure. So on our faceplate, this is the faceplate. You have 3 plungers that go in here. They're called draw valves. Along with those, this faceplate is a new design which is self-closing. On some of the older models, we didn't have that feature. Now, because of the yogurt shops and stuff like this, a lot of times they want self-closing handles. So these springs go in there and push the handles back pretty much, and to allow for closing of the draw valves. From there, we're going to assemble the faceplate. The faceplate has the most parts of anything. One thing that I want to point out is behind the faceplate, we have the fewest number of parts pretty much in the industry. On a comparable Stolting, there's 26 parts behind the faceplate. On a comparable Taylor, there's 18. We have 2 beaters, 2 ripple seals, and 4 O-rings. We used to not have the O-rings, but the O-rings are a very good idea. We put them on there for the pressurized machines to make sure that there was no leakage, because of the extra pressure. So on our faceplate, this is the faceplate. You have 3 plungers that go in here. They're called draw valves. Along with those, this faceplate is a new design which is self-closing. On some of the older models, we didn't have that feature. Now, because of the yogurt shops and stuff like this, a lot of times they want self-closing handles. So these springs go in there and push the handles back pretty much, and to allow for closing of the draw valves. Okay, so next we start with the draw valves. There's 3 draw valves on the machine. 2 of them are identical. They are the outside ones. They have 3 grooves on each one. The center one is different. It's got some side slots that go between to keep the product from migrating from the chocolate side to the vanilla side when this machine is just cycling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the O-rings on these first. Then after we get all the O-rings on, we'll lubricate them and insert them into the faceplate. So you got 3 O-rings on that one. Sometimes these are easier to get on when you don't have big fingers like I do. But got the 3 O-rings on that one. And then on this one, we have 2 regular O-rings for top and bottom, and then we have the middle one, which has those little bars on the side. I call it the H O-ring. And I'll show you in a second what I mean. So you have two O-rings, top and bottom, and then you have the H bars in between. There's grooves for those to fit into, so that now you can't get product transfer from the left side to the right side, because it's creating a seal where the twist feature is built into the faceplate. Okay, so now we're going to put a little bit of lubricant on each one. And then the biggest thing here is when you clean these, you have to take the O-rings off to clean the grooves. The grooves are where the bacteria would start to build, because product will sit in there and then it will, start to allow bacteria to build up and form in there. So now what we're going to do, we're going to insert the springs onto each one of these, and as we go, we're going to push them into to the opening. Now, one of the things that you should do is the hole for the handle should line up to the front of the faceplate. It makes everything easier to finalize the assembly, because that's what the end of the handle is going to fit into, and when you put all that together, which I'll show you in a minute, you'll be able to see. But it's already lined up pretty well the way it needs to be. So now all three handles are basically the same. There's no difference. We have a rod, the pivot rod that goes across. So as we push these up, that's why, getting them lined up ahead of time helps the process. And these can be in either way. It's a matter of preference, how much you want them to stick out in the front of the machine once it's assembled. So we're going to put together like this today. Sometimes people turn them around. There's no right or wrong. Either way works. Once you have the handles started in the position, then you just line them up as you're sliding the pivot rod through. Go all the way through, put the knob on the other end, and now you have that part assembled. These are the design caps. They just snap on here. There's 3 of them. They put the little ribs in the ice cream as it's dispensing to make it look pretty. That's the only thing they do. They don't have any other function. After that, we have the discharge door, the O-rings. These, there is a right and a wrong. If you look at them closely, one side of this is flat, the other side is round. You can put them in either way, but technically you should put the flat side down, because of the groove, the flat side, the bottom of the groove is flat as well. So they can go in there like that. Once you have them seated down in there, you can see that they stick up a little bit, but they shouldn't be sticking out a lot. If they're sticking out a lot, then they're not seated down into the groove the way they should be. Next, we're going to put the faceplate on the front of the machine. We line it up on the bolts, slide it on. Then we have the 4 hand screws that secure the faceplate to the front of the machine. I always do everything in a crisscross pattern. That keeps you from stressing out the faceplate. If you tighten it up too tight, side to side, doesn't happen often, but you could potentially crack a faceplate. It's been a long time since I've ever seen that, but this is the proper way to snug them up. After they're snug, you want to recheck them after your machine has run and the product is cold, because some of the O-ring will shrink a little bit from getting cold, and then it will be loose enough to possibly leak a little bit. Okay, so that takes care of basically assembling the main portion of the machine. What we have left are the mixed inlet tubes, or the air tubes. These are a new design that we came up with. They do have a number of O-rings on them because they're made to be adjustable. You can see we have, you know, different size holes depending on the volume that you're doing during the day. If it's a slow day, you might run it on the small hole. At night, you would put it in the space in between, which is no hole, to keep the product from migrating down into the freezing cylinder. And if you get real busy and you're slammed with a lot of people in line, you might have to open these up to the big hole. This affects how the product feeds down into the machine. If you don't have it on a big enough hole, you could possibly starve the freezing cylinder and run it out of product. This is something that you have to kind of get used to as you're operating the machine and you see how traffic comes and goes. You don't have to put them on the biggest hole all the time. The whole idea here is that you want to try and maintain your overrun, say 40 to 50% for standard soft serve product, and it's just a means of accommodating the higher traffic flow when you need to, and the rest of the time you can, you know, probably get by with a smaller setting. These don't really need, I got a little too much lubricant here, but they don't need a whole lot of lubricant. It's just mostly to keep so that the O-rings can slide in there without binding. Put a little bit down here so that they can slide into the hole correctly. And then this is the air orifice. He just pops in there like that. Again, here's the little O-ring on the bottom. Put a little bit more lubricant on there. The lubricant I'm using is made by Sterashine. It's a food grade lubricant for soft serve ice cream machines. There's another one out there called Petrogel. You know, these are pretty common products in the industry that you'll see out there. And so we got both of them set on the small hole. We're going to put our O-rings on and put a little bit of lubricant on there. One thing about when you have to clean the machine, this lubricant does not wash off with soap and water very easily. The best thing to do is, as you're disassembling the machine, is to wipe everything off with paper towels and throw the paper towels away. Then wash the parts with something probably at least as strong as Dawn, because you do have to cut through that and you want to get all the old lubricant off of the parts before you reassemble it. People always ask me, how long does it take to clean the machine? These machines are, because we have fewer parts than anybody else, they're pretty quick. A rookie will obviously take a little bit longer in the beginning, but and the whole idea in a store is not to have everybody being in charge of cleaning the machines. Get one or two people, train how to do it, and let them do it on a repeat basis, because the more often they do it, the better they get at it. That machine will take, I would say a reasonable average is 30 minutes from start to finish. You know, in the beginning it might take them 45 minutes to an hour, but as they get more proficient at it, then they'll be faster. And really, you know, the nice thing is the fewer parts you have, like with these machines, the less parts you have to lose, the less parts you have to clean, and it just goes faster. So we're going to take these and we're going to lay them up here in the top. And because the next step that we're going to do is sanitize the machine. As you can see in here, this machine has, this is the mix level probe. It senses how much mix is left in the hopper. When it gets low enough, then the indicator will come on and tell you that you need to add mix. Basically, this one is the low side of the mix level sensor. So basically, it's sensing how much liquid there is. If it's touching the probe, then the light stays off. If nothing is touching it, then the indicator will come on. Okay, one of the other tools that you need when you're operating the soft serve machine, and I find that so many stores do not have this, is a good digital thermometer with a probe. An infrared gun does not work. You have to have a digital thermometer that uses a probe. And the reason for this is, myself as a technician and many other technicians, if they know ice cream machines and you call up and say, my ice cream machine is not making the product firm enough. And the first question I will ask you is, what's the temperature of your product? If you have a digital thermometer, you can answer that question. If you don't, you can't. Without knowing the temperature, we can't diagnose your machine. It could be the machine it does actually have a problem, but 99% of the time, it's not the machine that's the problem. You know, a lot of times it's because mix has been setting in the machine too long. You didn't have a busy day. The product was sitting there. The product has a time clock ticking once it's frozen. All emulsifiers and stabilizers only last so long. So if the machine brings the product temperature down to 14 or 15 degrees and it's still not firm, then that's a product problem. And the only way we know whether it's product or machine is by knowing the temperature of the product. So this is part of our accessory kit, and it's a mandatory tool for running an ice cream machine. So now what I'm going to do is pour the sanitizer, which I've already pre-made, into the machine, and then we're going to turn it on and go through the sanitizing process. I'll try to do this without spilling too much. I've been working on these machines for a while now, but you still, I don't care how careful you are, it still splashes sometimes. So I started working on ice cream machines in 1976, so I do have a couple of years of experience. This is something else that you need to clean every night. This is the drip tray and the grid that fits in there. This is to catch any drips that come off the faceplate. It's always a good, in my opinion, it's always a good idea to clean this at night before you leave the store, and then recheck it in the morning. Right now we're going to set it off to the side because the bucket fits under here better if we don't have it on. So now we're going to turn the machine on so that we can put it in the wash, or some companies call it clean mode. All that mode does is runs the beater. It just agitates the product with no refrigeration. On this machine, this symbol is the faucet, which basically relates to cleaning. So now we have it agitating the product. A lot of times people will use a brush to wipe these sides down. It doesn't make any difference. To me, you have to get your hands sanitized, because one of the last things you're going to do before you put the product in there is to put this in the hole the way it belongs. Well, if your hand is not sanitized, guess what? You just contaminated the machine. So all the sanitizers need to have contact with the sides of the machine, the hoppers, or in the freezing cylinder for 5 minutes. So that's the time it takes to assure that you have done a proper job of sanitizing. So we're going to let it sit there and run for a little bit, and then we'll start to drain a little bit out. Let some fresh go down in there. A lot of times it's a good idea to hook the handle on here so that if you get busy reaching up there and moving things around, the bucket doesn't fall off. Alright, so we're back. We're basically at the end of the 5 minutes, so we're going to drain the machine out. I'm going to wipe down the sides of the tanks, the mixed reservoirs, one more time as it's draining out. And then basically we're ready to put the product in the machine. This is a very high dollar bucket. It's hard to come by, but it fits perfectly. Many of my customers all want the same bucket because they see it fits on here very nicely. It's a good thing my wife does a lot of laundry and we have these buckets available all the time, but we will probably have to start buying them pretty soon, and then we will have we won't be doing free advertising for the detergent company. So now I'm going to stand the air tubes up on the little probe that's sticking up in the bottom. That way we want to try and get all the water out that we can. The sanitizer doesn't hurt you at all. It just doesn't taste very good. And so typically I try and drain it the best I can. Then we're going to shut the machine off. Now, I've sanitized both hands, and this is one part that's some people say you shouldn't do this, some people say you do. I don't like any excess water in there. So I will wipe the bottom of it out with a clean paper towel. I don't use a terry cloth towel. I don't use anything else that can leave lint in there. And I don't use anything that's been used before. This has to be clean. Once you get all the water out, we've got our air tubes. We're going to drop them in the holes. They're still set on the small setting, and basically we're ready for the mix now. Alright, so now we have the mix ready. We're going to put the chocolate and vanilla in the machine. One of the key things that has to be done when you load the machine is there still can be a little bit of sanitizer left in the freezing cylinders. So we have to, what we call, burp the machine. The mix is heavier than water. So as it flows in there, it will push the sanitizer out, and first it will come out kind of watery and runny. Then pretty soon we'll get the nice mix coming out, and that's when we know that we've evacuated most of the water from the machine, and now we're ready to just pour the rest of it in. So I'm going to put the vanilla on the left side here, and then we'll put the chocolate on the right. And so as we pour the product in there, this is kind of a, if you have somebody helping you, it works a little bit better, but otherwise as long as you get some in there. It takes a few minutes for it to kind of work its way down and push that that water out of there. As soon as it starts coming out, try and get a better shot. It's hard with a white bucket to see everything, but eventually you'll start seeing the water come out. There's the water starting to dribble out. And then as it gets a little bit further along, it'll have all the water out, and then it will start dripping out mix. Now it's starting to get a little bit thicker. You can see the mix in the bottom of the bucket. So right now we're pretty much good. So we're going to put the rest of our mix in. That side's done. We can put the cover on there, and then we'll do the other side. There we go, we're starting to get some chocolate now. So it looks like we got all nice chocolate coming out, so we can get the bucket out of the way. Put our drip tray back in place. And now we have to let it feed down to, basically it's going to fill the freezing cylinders about half or a little bit more than half full, and then we will turn the machine on at that point. Okay, so basically we allowed the product enough time to run down into the freezing cylinders. So now we're going to start the machine. The snow cone is the auto mode on some machines, so we're going to start that. The snowflake is the hopper refrigeration. We're going to start that, and we're going to do that on both sides. And then we'll let the machine start up and freeze down. Okay, so now the machine has run through its cycle, it's shut off by itself, and our product is ready to serve. So we're going to draw out a twist. Put a little cone in it, and there you go. So I want to thank you for watching this video. Again, my name is John Freudenberg with JDF Marketing, representing Oceanpower America. Look for the video on their website, and on my website will be coming up shortly. And if you have any further questions, you can call me at 817-560-0909 or contact oceanpoweramerica.com. Either way, we're readily accessible if you have any questions.